They can tell you every reason why it can't be done. And that principal, that assistant principal, will spend every bit of 2 years, 3 years trying to get rid of this person who is killing your kids, man. Kids don't even want to go to her class. And they tell you, I'm not going there. Well, you're going to get suspended. Then I'll be suspended then. And you have the data. The data says she's pretty bad. But she remains protected because you want to stay among the first. Because you don't want her to give you a side eye. She's not your friend. Again, I'm back talking to the 7th grade girls. She just talked about you. She ain't your friend. We have a moral obligation to provide quality education to America's children. This is not an option. This is what the community has paid you to do. It's what they paid you to do. If you cannot do that, if the conditions are too much, then just let somebody know. Tap out. Can't do it. Too much for me. Of course the kids are poor. You know why they're poor? Because the parents that they raised them didn't get a good education either. And the grandparents that raised them didn't get one either. And the reason why they don't read is because the adults in their lives were never taught to read either. The can-do attitude comes with the understanding that we have to make sacrifices now. That we have to look at the current system and recognize that many of our school systems are simply too large to be effective. Gone are the days that an assistant superintendent or a dean or the like can make the decisions for curriculum for 20,000 kids. And 2,000 teachers in English across multiple schools. That system is a failure. But we keep doing it because we're up front, we're first, and nobody wants to say, I don't really think that's a good idea. I think we should break this thing down into smaller parts, smaller, more manageable parts, where the people on the top are not too far away from the children, and so they have a keener understanding of the implications of the decisions. They need to be nimble. The systems need to have the capacity to make decisions and move forward. See, if I come in and I'm here to motivate the kids, then I tell them the story about how I've seen people overcome and they, hooray. But then I'm letting the grown people off the hook again. We don't have any more children to sacrifice. We've sacrificed all the kids we can. We've lost all the children who we can afford to lose and then some. Oftentimes we have the conversation about, well, you could end up in prison or at risk. I'm not even talking about the ones who get locked up. I'm talking about the ones who just stop asking questions in class. Who will live their lives unemployed or underemployed. Who will have children before they're ready. Will not really be able to take care of them. Who will be sicker than anyone else for longer periods of time and will be an overall drain on the system. You will take care of them now, or you will have them take care of you later. They will not all die. They will not all go to prison. Most of them will fumble their way through their adult life. And you will be reminded of your decision over and over again. This is really a moral call. If those who sacrifice in my name will do so. then they will benefit 100-fold and have everlasting life. And it's both. If you want the truest of rewards, then you have to make the most significant sacrifices. You will have to fight for what works, even when what works will put your friends out of work. And that's really where we end. One of the biggest lessons that we teach our children is that they're going to have to decide who their friends are and how they separate themselves from those who will not lead them down the path that they need to go. Those of us who are educators spend a great deal of our time talking to children about making the right decision. And typically the right decision is, don't hang with this one, do hang with that one. But we as educators are constantly trying to figure out how to make a change that doesn't feel like a change, but changes the results without removing some people and employing other people. The truth is, it's sacrifice. Every single child who I have ever seen be successful had adults in their life who made sacrifices. And dare I say, without knowing most of you, that if I were to ask you to hearken back for a moment, you'd struggle to fight back the tears when you think of those who sacrificed for you. If I asked you to close your eyes and think about that praying grandmother, if I asked you to think about it in your current context, knowing how much money you spend to live your life and how much money she didn't have, watching as you always seemed to eat first, though she cooked, and you now as an adult know exactly what was going on. She was going to allow you to eat until you were what? Full. And then after you were done, and your brothers or sisters and cousins were done, then she would eat. Brothers and sisters, you were taught the simple sacrifices by too many people along the way for you to get comfortable in your first position. If I were to ask you to think about the teacher who inspired you to be an educator, who thought nothing of bringing you a pair of shoes, now that you know how much she made, you think to yourself, how could she have bought so much for so many of us? I ask you to take a deep breath, to breathe really deeply, to decide if you are prepared to answer the call. If you have the will to make the sacrifice that our children need, if you are truly His people in this His season, if you are, then you understand the obligation that you have to forego your current status as first and sacrifice so that the least among us should benefit. Our children are many things. Many things. But where they are now is they are helpless. They have very little providence over what happens in their lives, at least the meaningful parts. As long as we maintain the current system, then we will get the current results. with this much ability in this room, with this much commitment in this room, with this many resources in this room, you have to decide to start shutting down failed schools, regardless of how good the football team is. You have to provide children with access to school choice. You cannot damn a child to generations of failure as they come from generations of failure simply because their parents do not have the money to buy into a better school. Not here, not in Mississippi, not in America. You have to open your mind up to the notion that the traditional schools work for some people, but not for everybody. Some people need a home school. Some people need a charter school. Other children need a Catholic school or a Baptist school. Some still need a private school. We should not care what the tax designation of the school is, but that it is a good school. We should not be moved by the fact that some people in certain schools are unionized or in an association and others are not. We should be most concerned about whether or not the children in those schools can read on grade level. It should not be something that we celebrate that a third grader can read at the third grade level. This is not an extraordinary feat here, folks. It should not become typical that 30, 40, 50% of your high school graduates cannot read on grade level. As you focus on the graduation rate, but the competencies continue to plummet, what have you but a piece of paper that the graduates can't read? Stop playing the numbers game and make the changes that are necessary. Your children deserve it, and my God, you deserve it. I'll finish here. What Bishop Jakes said should help us all. You are not educating your children to take care of themselves. You are, in effect, educating them to take care of you. And as many of you are now learning, as you've gotten older and your parents are aging and some of them are nearing the transition, that some of you are taking care of your parents as you do an infant, bathing and washing them, taking care of their feminine responsibilities and the like. What does Jackson's future look like? Go into your schools and watch as your children's underwear become ever present simply because they're standing up. Go into your elementary schools and listen to children curse like mean-spirited grown people. Watch and see how many fights you see, and watch how brutal the fights are. Sure, we could focus on the positive. Guys had a great season this year. Or we could focus on the reality. The reality is that if you're here now, you understand that a change must occur immediately. And the only way that that change will happen is if you understand that your objective should be to be the last. So that on that day, on that judgment day, you can be first. Thank you so much for your time and attention.